Good morning and welcome to Real Estate Mega Moms in the Morning. This Friday, I'm super excited to be with a different partner in crime and joined by Bethany Lyles, who is she is a top producer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so Bethany, you want to just kind of introduce yourself real quick?
Good morning, guys. My name is Bethany Lyles. I have been part of Mega Moms for a little over 2 years now and love every minute of it and everything I've learned and taken. I am a broker in Dallas-Fort Worth and have worked in this market for a little over 5 years, almost 6 years now. So I've seen it change. I've grown up and lived in the exact same county, so I've seen this county grow and change over the years too. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad to join you this morning, Randy, and I'm ready to get to talking about fun stuff. So
Yeah, well, I'm really excited because Bethany and I actually been chatting a little bit on Clubhouse. That's something new that we've been doing and going live on there. And it just, it's funny because it's just that conversation. I feel like it could last all day long. And there's just so many ahas and so many points that we can talk to right now. And something that Bethany and I are both experiencing is the influx to our states from California. So there's kind of a mass exodus happening. And when you look at the migration patterns across the country, it's really interesting. And something that stood out to me a couple months ago when I was really looking at it is just the mass amount of Californians, flooding the Texas market. And so then when Bethany and I kind of got to speaking about different pain points and different hurdles and just obstacles and just things happening in the market, I was like, oh my goodness, we have identical markets, right? And so, so how is that right now? Are you seeing a lot of Californians? I would imagine so.
a lot. Well, I mean, you got to think a lot of big corporate hubs have come to Dallas. So, I mean, we have State Farm, we have Toyota. Toyota just moved their big headquarters about 10 miles south of us. So with all the business growth and influx, oh yeah, they're coming. And I'm telling you, it's California clients have probably been half of my business this year, just this year alone. I mean, everybody's coming. We welcome them. Let's do it.
Although, let me just tell you, we have a little saying in Nevada. Don't California my Nevada.
We say the same thing in Texas. Don't change our Texas, please.
Right.
We welcome you. Come on, but don't change it, please.
Right. So I have to say, it's very bittersweet because I will tell you, I kind of same thing, native Nevadan, grown up here, and I've definitely watched us get some Californified, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think let's just start with the topic, right? Which is, this is it. Why is pricing so important in this market? And it was interesting because I feel like we kind of led up to this conversation yesterday when we were just talking about how do you position a buyer in this market, right? How do you even position them? And you and I both were talking about how imperative it is to say, okay, that's fantastic that, you're approved for 500. Let's look at 420, right? Because we want you to be well under your purchase point so that you have some power and some leverage to negotiate. With that said, I shared with you yesterday that, I was getting ready to share some news with a client. And when I shared it, the client's response really just got me thinking. And what I had to break to my client was that their $80,000 guaranteed, meaning that they're guaranteeing that they're offering $80,000 above asking price, and they're guaranteeing that price. So they're saying, regardless of the appraisal, regardless of anything, we will give you the $80,000 above. They offered a 60-day no cost rent back. They asked for 0 repairs, and they covered every single expense. I think escrow fees might have been the only thing that they asked to split. So very, very clean, strong offer. And I had to say, sorry, we didn't get it. And, my client just, she just was like, why did they even price at that number? And it was a question for me that I had already kind of wondered. But then I had a second client yesterday, Bethany, message me and say, should we go for this property, or is this another low price strategy? And I went and I pulled the comps, and it's 10K below the lowest end of the comps. And I'm just sitting here like, I get it. And I understand the strategy in certain markets when we're trying to maximize our seller's bottom line. But why in this market is it necessary to price under when we already know that even pricing where the data shows us we should be, we're probably going to end up 20 or 40K above that?
Well, and you're so right, because even the homes that are being sold as is, like without repairs being done, they're still selling at top dollar, and it is surprising. And you know what's funny? So I last night spent a lot of time running comps. I've got a couple of, we don't call them listing appointments. We call them listing getters because we don't go to get it. We go to sign it and be done with it, right? So I was running some comps yesterday to go on a listing appointment today. And I was thinking about this after we talked about it yesterday. And sure enough, you can see it because there were a couple of houses that were priced lower. And yes, the split with what buyers were willing to do was quite a bit higher and quite a bit of a difference from some of the other ones. The problem is it makes you wonder, like, I don't understand why they're priced them so low, because it's the same home and it's the same comparable home. Do you think it could possibly go back to that we maybe just have some agents that aren't the best at maybe pricing, or they don't know how to price appropriately? Or do you think it's more sellers that are, surely a seller's not gonna guide pricing low?
Yeah, I don't think it's a seller. So, I was having a conversation with one of my investors, and I say this with the utmost respect, and I don't mean it offensively, but I think it's the truth. I think we have a lot of emotion driving this industry and not so much skill, right?
Sure.
I'm not trying to be offensive to anyone, but I think we have a lot of emotion, and I also think that we have a lot of inexperience. And so the truth is that, we know 80% of our business, 80% of people in the industry isn't doing this at a high level, right? Especially in my market, we have a ton of people that work in, the casino industries and different things, and they do this as a second job. And I'm not by any means saying that those people are not highly skilled. I have an uncle who's done exactly that, and he's highly skilled. With that said, I think that there's maybe that component of not doing it in volume in this present market and understanding what's actually happening, thus using a plan and a strategy that's not applicable to this market, such as
I agree with you.
right?
And you know what's funny is you're so right, because if you look at, we know in our market, okay, so just to kind of backtrack and give you Dallas stats, if this puts it in perspective, I was talking on our Clubhouse call yesterday. In our Collin County market, the county where I live, which is, Frisco, Dallas, it's the big area. We had 2 active homes on the market yesterday, 2 under $500,000. And those 2, lo and behold, this morning were gone. Okay. So if you look at those listings though, and that makes sense what you're saying, I think it is experienced agents that are pricing appropriately versus others. And it's almost like they know where to price, because those are the ones that are priced a little more competitively, that might not have as big of a split when you're looking at how much more people are paying over that, but they're not the big scale, like the big difference makers or the big difference in numbers versus some of the other ones. I agree with you. I think it's experience, and I think who's working the market is pricing the most aggressively. But then it comes into how aggressive is too aggressive with your pricing. And I'm doing that with the listing right now. Like, I'm running these comps this morning to go meet with these sellers at lunchtime today. And I know they want to be aggressive because they see the market and they see what's happening. And okay, well, if this house that's a 2-car garage, it's the same square footage as ours, got 350, why can't we list at 365?
Right.
And it's almost, but how high is too high? Like, where's that line as an experienced listing agent of when you say, okay, I think we ought to go here, because regardless, you're going to go higher. But where's that line?
Well, and I just, honestly, I kind of think the line's out the window right now. I mean, if I'm just being 100% honest, because, I shared with you on Clubhouse, I had a seller that, the data, I believe that there's different, there's a different zone for the pricing, right? There's the fire sale price, there's the target spot on price, and then there is the, the stretch price, right? And I'm giving clients a stretch price. Of course, I'm giving them a stretch price in this market because we can go for the stretch price. Mm-hmm. And then they're saying, well, let's add $10,000 on that. And I'm saying, I don't know. There's no data that supports that right now. And then lo and behold, not only are we going the 10,000 above the stretch price, but then we're getting the offers, and the offers are exceeding that. And I shared with you that, the deals that I have got done, all of them have had in the last couple of weeks have had enormous gap clauses. And I've positioned my clients in a way to say, like, I need you to understand, this means that you're essentially, just call this a convenience fee. Let's call this a convenience fee to get the house. So, because this isn't going to your loan, this isn't going to any of that. This is a $20,000 convenience fee to get the house. And I position them for that. And then I just kind of sit back in shock when the appraisal comes in above the contract price. And I'm just like, where did it, and the interesting thing is that now what's happening is, now when you get to these markets, and now I'm coming back to the very market that I, position the buyer to win in, I'm coming back to those very markets, and lo and behold, what do you think happening? The data is changing. And so it's kind of like this fine balance of, we stretch, but then if the market rises to the stretch, then the market rises, right? So then I mean, it's just, and I think the thing that's really hard for me is very similar to your market. We have Google, we have Tesla, we have Switch, we have all of these huge tech companies that have come into our market. But what we haven't seen is the Silicon Valley executive level incomes come to our market, right? We've seen the workforce come to our market, and we have a disproportion between our workforce and what they can afford and our housing market. And now, I mean, there's even been, some talk, and I haven't looked too much into it, so I can't speak too heavily on it, but there's even been some talk on changing how we assess, because we don't assess on sell, and going to California's model of, assessing on sell. And I mean, I couldn't even fathom these poor buyers trying to get into the market. And, I'm talking to them about not worrying about missing a boat, just their boat, right? And now they're trying not to, and now they're going to have possibly new taxes. Like it would just be, I just don't know how we come to a place that we still capitalize on that equity and the win for the seller, but not at the complete cost of the buyer.
It's in two different worlds right now, honestly, Randy. Like, you have to look at buyers one way and go down one complete strategy to get a buyer home, completely different than you would a seller. I mean, it's not even a meet in the middle, like it was previously. So it's a lot of expertise. It's a lot of knowing your market and knowing what's happening. And it's a lot of collaborating with other agents who are out there doing it to be able to say, hey, what's happening? And hey, how did you come up with this number? I mean, I do that a lot. I reach out to other agents in our office that have had listings, or other agents that I know in our market that have had listings. Hey, how did you come to this number for pricing? Like, I know you can't tell me exacts, but how many offers did you end up with at that price? How much higher did you go than that? And I'm trying to get the data, because at the end of the day, we're the data givers for these sellers. Like, they can determine to list wherever they want, and it's up to them if the house sells or not. They're going to have a lot more luck in our market now for it to sell than we would have previously. But at the end of the day, we're the data givers. And I just feel like if we can give them as much data as we can, I just want to position them in a spot where, yes, we can probably stretch to here. This is probably the comfort point, and it's finding that good ground in between. Because you're right, at the end of the day, we're going to have those appraisal clauses where they're just going to pay it anyway, which is good. But yeah, it's hard. And it is hard with buyers at the same time, like how do you find that mix? Because you don't want them to overpay, and you don't want them to put it all in the line. But I think it comes down to that conversation too, on how long are they planning on staying in it? And is it worth your while to pay more now to stay in it another few years? Because it is going to take longer to build that equity back.
Well, and also, are you going to be in a position in the future that, if you do need to move on, are you equipped and willing to become a landlord versus, selling this, right? So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of conversations to be had, but I think you really hit it on the head when it comes to skill. I think this is the time to dive in and be heavier conversation. I mean, I'm spending 30, 40 minutes at a time on the phone with other agents, just saying like, talk to me, like we're to be honest, most times we're going, I can't believe it. We're kind of like experiencing it, but I don't really think that anybody wants to see a massive disproportion, right? Like, I don't think, while sellers love it, I think they're also empathetic to the buyer side, because 9 times out of 10, they're on that buyer side, right? They're like, wait a minute, like, I mean, we have a handful of investors who are, kind of immune to the pain right now, and they can sell, but even they are being hit at a different level, because you probably saw that now there's some guidelines coming down on the second homes and on the investment properties, and they're going to limit their portfolios to like 7%. So that's going to be a harder. So, I mean, so we're seeing a little bit of pain for everybody. And I don't think anybody wants to just see, one person suffer. We kind of would like to make it a little bit more even, but I have to tell you that, I think when we talk about the skill, I think there's also another component of something I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed a little bit of an increase on back on market properties. And that's been a little interesting to me, because I'm like, why the heck in this market when, I mean, I basically have, we have a clause in our contract that basically says you can either keep my earnest money as, full damage, or you can come after me for actual. Like, I actually have buyers talking about the latter because they want to show how committed they are. I have buyers saying, like, what can I give? What can I do? So why, in a market where buyers' commitment level is higher than ever, are some of these properties coming back on market? And it leads me to just kind of feel like what I said in the beginning of this conversation, which is how much emotion is driving this industry, because and versus skill. And it's not a bad thing, but how is it happening? I think it's because people are putting together offers that are basically out of this world. And then I think people are accepting offers that are out of this world, and there's not so much vetting happening. And it's interesting. And I think that this is where some value comes in. You have the seller right now in the market who says this to you, Bethany. Well, I mean, I can stick my house up and I can get 10 offers in a day. Why do I need an agent? Well, there's a lot of reasons. And one of them is going to be the vetting process. I had multiple offers on a property, and we had one cash. So, cash is interesting because it was really coming from the sale of another property. And so, some people look at that as cash. I kind of look at that as not cash. But nonetheless, my seller was kind of leaning towards the actual finance deal because, he was going back and forth. So he's leaning towards the one that had financing because he didn't see the contingency as cash. He saw it as a contingency, and he didn't want the contingency. And I said, well, you know what? The market's on our side. Let's put a little pressure on both of them. Let's see if we can get, like, how do you feel? I proposed a strategy. How do you feel about just adding one more layer of vetting to each side? Let's see if this guy that is the contingent offer bringing cash would explore a bridge. And let's see if the finance person will at least talk to one of our lenders, because it was you can do this, but it was only 3% down on, a house that was pretty expensive. So he was a little nervous about his cash on hand. So I said, let's go ahead and have this guy talk to a preferred lender just to do a next level vet, and this guy see if he'll get a bridge. We put it out. The strongest buyer goes ghost. We put one layer of vetting and they tap out. They go AWOL on us for 3 days and then they tap out. And at first I was like, well, was that a bad strategy? Because now I'm going to go back and say, hey, I had 2 offers and I lost one. But then I was like, heck no, it's not. Because what kind of commitment was that? That right there is how you end up back on the market in 3 weeks, right? That's how your seller, who's already got a U-Haul and is moving across the country, all of a sudden ends up in a really bad situation because you accepted the offer that looked amazing, but you didn't put some skill into the game and vet that offer, right? And so I think that that's another interesting component happening right now is some of these offers. I mean, there was one that I got beat out and we talked after the fact and they told me what we got beat. And I was just like, that didn't happen at close, right? Like, cause that can't happen like that just the structure. And they were like, no, we had to come back down. So in actuality, the offer that we got beat out at wasn't stronger than us, but it wasn't vetted. So I think that's another interesting thing happening in the market right now.
I think it's twofold, Randy. I think it's twofold. We're not seeing them coming back on the market. And what we're seeing is not coming back on the market, but we're seeing backup offers sometimes 5 to 10 deep, which is crazy. So that house is going to sell, and we're just telling sellers, when is it going to sell based off how many offers we have to get through. But I think it's twofold in that, yes, it is emotional. I think it's more emotional for buyers because they're willing to put more on the line. So they're wanting to make sure it's worth their while because they're putting more on the line. So if they get in and realize, okay, well, it might need a lot of repairs or it might need this or just whatever, it could be that they're starting to think, well, man, is that really worth me putting the $80,000 down like your client did? Or, so I think they want it. They have to have it. It's that shiny, that one, I have to have this house. I have to have a house right now. But I think when it comes down to it, they're really starting to think, is my dollar worth this? Like, should I be putting this much down for it? But on a seller side, again, back to the education piece, why agents are so important. I think it's knowing the market to be able to get all of these offers, create, a good comparison sheet for these sellers and be able to talk them through why one offer might be stronger than another. Because even like you said, cash sometimes trumps all other offers, but it might not trump the other offer in terms and bottom line net for that seller. So it's kind of looking at all those offers and it's looking at obstacles for the seller along the way too. I call it jumping hurdles. Like when we get under contract, I always tell my sellers, we're about to run a race. We're about to go around the track. We've got so many hurdles we've got to jump. And after we jump one, we'll move on to the next one. So you want to eliminate as many of those hurdles as you can so they don't have to jump over them, right? So I think it's looking at all of those offers and truly being able to explain it and having the knowledge to explain it to these sellers. Yes, this offer price might be higher than the other one, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to do X, Y, and Z and get through it to make it happen. And you're probably going to net less than you would with one of these other ones. So, I mean, I think it's raw emotion on the buy side, but I truly think it's education on the seller side, hands down.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do think that you're right in the sense, I mean, I always think of thrift store shopping. I did it for a lifetime with my grandma, and I will go into a thrift store and I will inevitably, I'll see something. I could even have it in my hands and I look at it and I'm like, nah, I don't really need it. And then the second it's in another cart, I see somebody put it in their cart. I'm following them around. I'm literally like, Mom, go stay behind them. Like all of a sudden I need it differently. So, I always think of that. And I think that you're 100% right that, when you're in the moment of trying to secure it, I think that, it can be so much more emotional. And then when you do secure it, reality, and we're not seeing just to be very clear, we're not seeing any like huge number. It's just interesting that a handful that we've competed for have come back on, and we've been so strong that it's been interesting to wonder what does happen. So I do think that that's a component. And I think ultimately, I think we all in this industry right now need to lead with conversation. We need to lead with data, and we need to lead with empathy, because we're all in an unprecedented market, right? From the agents to the appraisers to the lenders to the buyers and to the sellers. And I think that we just kind of need to navigate it. Obviously, the hope is that a little bit more inventory will come and we'll get a little bit of relief here, because I don't think anybody loves living in a one-sided market. I never appreciated a balanced market as much as I do today, right? And so I think it'll be interesting to see where we're going. How are you feeling about where we're going?
I mean, I'm loving it. It's harder, there's a little bit, I don't know, maybe I look at things different. Maybe I just approach it different. But in my opinion, it doesn't matter what the market is doing or where the market is sitting. I have to hustle. I have to grind. I have to do what I have to do because I have to make money. I have to provide for my family, right? So I look at it as, what strategies do we need to change? Or what do we need to change in how we're looking at it and how we're doing it? Same thing with buyers, the urgency that these buyers have, they have to find them. Well, okay, let's look at your urgency. Let's see if your urgency is really right now, or could your urgency be in 3 months? Or what is the urgency for right now? And it's learning that to maybe be able to guide them down a different path to make it happen. Mm-hmm. Yes. Or look at something that's cheaper,
Yes. Well, and I think that right there, I think in this market, what we have to be equipped to do is have the conversation of, is this right for you? Is this right for you now? Right. And I think that as being, I mean, we are in, I feel that we're in a service industry, but I understand that the consumer sees this as a sales industry. And I think that this is a time that it is really imperative. I do believe every market should be the same basic fundamentals, which is that it's an individualized answer. Right? Mm-hmm. Like if somebody asks me if now's a good time to buy or sell, that is 100% of an individualized answer. It is not a yes or a no, right? Like people are like, yes, absolutely, it's a great time to sell. Well, no, are you buying? Where are you going? What do you need? There's a lot more questions to it. And so I really do think that, this is a great time that you can launch, if you haven't already built a cornerstone in your business of relationship, that you can really do that. I think this is the time to really have deeper conversations, higher level conversations. I think this is the time to be an educator in your market. I think this is a time to get, if you're somebody who's not putting content out and you're not going in front of people, I think this is the time to really be able to do it and add value and help people, and even plant the seed, but at the same token, help them water the seed so that they can see what it could be, right? So I think a lot of times we in this industry are great at throwing out one infographic or one information piece and saying like, right now, call me to sell your house. I can get you $80,000. And that might throw 100 seeds, but then we don't go back and water them, right? We don't go back and water them. We're just throwing these seeds out all the time. And I think it's important to come back and talk to people, because I think at the end of the day, I believe real estate is one of the safest investments. I think it's one of the greatest way to wealth building. I think that it can change the course of generational wealth for years to come. And I'm so honored to get to do this, but I also think it comes with a higher sense of responsibility to actually be in relationship with your clients and be discussing the pros, the cons, and also in relationship with our industry and other agents and help each other rather than, and I get it. We are, it's a little tough. We're kind of, constricted on what level of transparent conversations we can have, and so it's a little tough, but I think it goes a long way in helping. When I didn't get that offer, I just, can you give me something? Can you help me understand anything so I can go back to my clients and I can help them to understand what was the component or what it was. I just think that helping people, again, it's exactly what you said. We are here to empower people to make informed decisions. And I think the better informed they are when they're making the decision, the better we're doing our job. And I think that's all it boils down to.
I agree 100%. I think, and it's not it's sometimes it depends answer. And that it depends can be based off their situation and what they need. Keep talking about it with the sellers a little bit. How many times, and I know I've heard it probably at least once a day in the last month. I'm sure you have too. Well, yeah, it's a great time to sell and I want to sell, but where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? And that's it depends answer. It depends. Are you okay, finding something rental for a while so you don't have to buy in this market? Are you okay buying in this market? It's always an it depends answer. And I think that's when we have to get creative with the strategies, honestly. And you're right, it is relationships, because back to what you were saying about you were reaching out to that agent to try to find out why your client's offer didn't get accepted. How many agents honestly are doing that, Randy? Like, how many agents honestly are reaching out to these listing agents and saying, tell me what we can do. Tell me what we could do different, because it's not happening. And normally they're willing to share more with you when you call, because that's not the norm. They're not used to getting that. They're used to sending out the email to whoever put an offer in. And then you're like, well, we didn't get it. I mean, I would welcome that. I would be so excited and welcome that if another agent called me and say, hey, can you talk me through why we didn't get this offer? Like, I think that's brilliant. And I think it does help to educate them moving forward. You're right on that.
Yeah. Well, and I just think that there's so many unknowns in this current market. And there's just so many different experiences that the more we get, the stronger it makes us, and the more that we can really, again, that just adds to our skill to help our clients in this market. So, I mean, it's a tough market. I mean, ultimately, if you're looking at buying or selling, or you have clients that are looking at buying or selling, I mean, the expectation needs to be set that this is an emotional process right now on both ends, right? This has some really big highs. This has some really big lows. But with that said, I say this all the time. I am a firm believer that you can have a tough transaction and a great experience. Mm-hmm. And so what I would encourage anyone to do, and what I encourage the people in our industry to do, is to really level up right now. Level up your knowledge, level up your skill, understand what's happening. This is a great time. I had an agent in my office say this to me, and I'm sure you experience this a lot, Bethany, but somebody said to me the other day, I hate not knowing. And I said, why? Like, why do you not enjoy being the amateur more? Like, why? Like, this is the time that it's totally like, okay, like you can say, I'm going to get that information for you. Get pumped to learn, get pumped to get skilled. I'm 18 plus years into this, and I am literally having ahas left and right? Like up until now, I will admit it, most balanced markets and even, the short sale market didn't require me to have a tremendous amount of loan product knowledge. And so therefore, I like to run in my lane. I still run in my lane. I'm very cautious of making sure that when I'm educating people, it's on what I know and not, what a lender or a title officer or somebody else knows. But with that said, what I know is in this market, for me to do my lane well, and for me to position my buyers well, and for me to understand things, I've needed to learn some different loan products. I've needed to learn some different options. I've needed to learn that you can waive an appraisal in a finance loan, right? Like that actually can happen. And I've needed to learn what that metric is, because I need to go 10 layers deep to get a client's offer accepted. And so I've got excited about that. I think that one thing that's really beautiful about this is, I think, twofold for the consumers. I think for the buyers and the clients, that when they're really in this type of high caliber, well vetted, full on conversation, decision making, I think that they feel so much better at the end when it settles, and they either have bought or sold. I feel like they feel better. And I feel for like our industry, I hate that our industry is put into the category of car salesman, which that's a sore point for me because my dad's a car salesman. So I hate that they're in their point. But point being is that I feel like as an industry, these are the opportunities that we have to be differentiators. These are the opportunities we have to show people a completely different level of skill, right? I have to tell you, I have one client who is an amazing friend of mine, and we've been friends for years. And her dad is he owned a construction company at a very high level, and he's always had his people, and he's handled stuff, and it's been okay. Like I totally respect and understand relationships, so I've never really got to do anything for the family. And in this particular case, I've got to have many conversations with him. And it's just been so cool because, I remember being the amateur and thinking like, oh my goodness, like I hope to talk to people at this level one day. And now I'm having those conversations, and it's a very fluid, very natural, very amicable, respectable conversation. And that's exciting. So I think as an industry, this is the time that we should dig our heels in, get excited, get pumped, get in relationship, and empower people with information, and take advantage of the byproduct of raising the expectation and the perception of our industry versus, in 2008 and 2010, when we were seeing completely different. I think this is an opportunity for people to say like, wow, the level of expertise and skill and guidance that came out of my agent is something I would expect of somebody I would hire for my largest asset, right? Like it's kind of ironic, but we're dealing with most people's largest asset. Like, let's level it up. Let's get into this industry and let's really level it up.
I've always been such a big advocate on that, Randy, and you know that. And I talk about it a lot in Clubhouse. I'm just such a big proponent and thinker on, I don't want to change our industry, but I want to let our industry know that there are some people that are really good at what they do and can lead with a servant heart and can lead appropriately to guide their clients. At the end of the day, it's not about how many deals we close, and it's not about how much money we make, and it's not about our gross commission to income. It's about how many clients and how many families and how many people did we help achieve their real estate goals this year? And I think sometimes when our market gets crazy, we stray from that, and we stray from what the goal is, and we stray from what the important reason is we do what we do. We are servant leaders, and that's why we chose to get into real estate. And I think we've got to go back to the basics in building relationships with other agents and building relationships, with our clients, because those clients, if you treat them well and you lead them with a servant heart and you lead them to help them achieve their goal, guess what? They're going to send you a lot more people with their servant heart to keep your business running, and your business will be sustained because of your servant heart. That is my basis. I tell everybody that story. I tell my clients that story. I lead our team with that story. Because at the end of the day, it does not matter how many deals you close. Your business is going to be built and is going to grow based off of how you lead, how you interact, and how you handle your servant heart to achieve the goal for these clients that we're helping. So there's my preach and rant. It's true.
Well, I agree with you 200%, 250%. And I mean, it's going to go back to the component of my faith, and you're a believer just like me, but I believe when we work His way, He provides, right? Like I just believe that. And I've come, yesterday, it was a unique situation. I had a client call me and tell me that that they were going, a seller, and they were going with another agent. And the thing that was kind of like a little bit of a sting was they weren't going with an agent, they were going with a representative. And it was a referral. And so it's supposed to be each of us. It's not supposed to be representatives. And I checked myself right away. At first I did ask for feedback, like, is there anything that could have been? And it was one of these bummer things because he says, yeah, I think meeting in person would have been great. And the request was, could we please meet virtually? And so it was kind of like that moment of like, is it worth having the conversation of reminding them they asked for the virtual meeting? But it wasn't, but it was, what I went back to was, and I say this all the time on our podcast and in our coaching company, we don't know what God is protecting us from or preparing us for. And it's not our job to try to prove things, and it's not our job to try to force things, right? And I think that when we really can lead our business that way and our clients that way, and we're not trying to force people into sales, we're not trying to force people into buys, we're not trying to force things, we're just trying to serve and have the heart of a teacher, I really think that, God allows it to come back tenfold. And I agree with you. I don't fear any market I don't want certain markets just simply because I don't want to see the pain and the struggle and the hardship on people, but I don't fear them because I know that we can serve in any market, you know.
You're
So
so
I
right.
think that
I mean, you're
I
so
think we're
right. And I mean, even in the beginning when I was a brand new agent, like you try to go get all the business. You try to always be going. You try to always have the clients. And you get very stressed when you have to negotiate a crazy inspection report because you've got to keep that deal together.
Yep.
Like I remember all that. But I'm going to tell you, it was leveling up and game changing for me in my business when I would always take it back to that servant leadership, putting it back to basics. If this is supposed to happen, it's going to happen. And our job is to stay calm and educate and be that resource to these clients. Because if we're stressed about an inspection report, or if we're stressed about is it going to appraise, or if we're stressed about, oh my gosh, there's only 2 houses on the market and there's 50 buyers putting in offers, and is our offer, what are we going to have to do to get this offer? Tying it back into what we're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, even as a seller, well, yeah, we'll get all these offers. Well, yeah, this will happen. Okay, but let's educate and let's talk through it and let's see the what ifs. It's always going to be taking it back to that education, being the resource and being that calming influence for them. Because when you can stay in that mindset, you're going to be able to guide this market so much better, and you're going to be a better resource in this market, and you're going to be able to creatively think of ways that you can help your clients achieve their goals when you have that mindset of it's going to be okay. Like, this is going to be okay. Let's figure out the solution, or it depends, right? It depends.
Exactly. Well, and that is how Real Estate Mega Moms was born, because it's our heart to help women to build a, scalable business without sacrificing these things, right? And we are very much an industry that is GCI driven, which, to be completely honest with you, GCI does not matter, right? I mean, it does not matter. I've seen people have $1 million GCI and an $80,000 net, right? And that's not impressive. That's a very unhealthy business. And so I think that, I think that it's important for us, and, for the new agents out there, I think it's important to just remember it is tough and there are those scary moments, and that doesn't go away. That doesn't go away for anybody, and, sometimes I hear people say, oh yeah, even my own brother will say, yeah, it must be nice to you. I mean, we are risk takers in our industry, right? We get to do something that's amazing and that is beautiful and does have a high level payoff, but it also has a high level risk. And I think that we have to learn that in the risk that we take, and it can be nerve wracking. I shared this right now. My pipeline and my escrow, my buyer pipeline and my escrow pipeline are reversed. That's scary. That's nerve wracking, right? I have 40 plus approved buyers and I have 10 escrows. Like that is a big swap. That number's normally swapped, and it's nerve wracking. But what we can't do in this industry is we can't let that be our driving force. We can't let that fear and that need individually. And that's why it is important to link arms. That is important. Why it's important to be coached. That's why it's important to be mentored. That's why it's important to serve, because again, at the end of the day, we already live in a stressful enough market. And I would say this to the public as well. Lean in to the people that that are professionals. I get convenience. I am the person that will pay for convenience. I am the person that within 5 minutes of being in any establishment, I'm already rating their customer experience. So I get it. But at the same token, I think that if we as agents can learn to serve, it keeps us in a better place. And then I think if the consumer can think about, instead of the instant information on a website and starting a cold relationship, I lean into somebody that I already know or trust, or somebody I know and trust, I think that we would really help all of ourselves in this market. So.
And it's true. And here's a stat for you, because you're a stat person just like I am. I was reading on the National Association of Realtors website the other day that it said out of all the sales right now, 84% of the market is buying with an agent. So if anything, that goes and shows and proves to me that we are valuable and people do value our opinions. 100%.
Yeah. Well, and I got to tell you, this may not be the best thing to share, but it's the truth. I'm so excited for one of my buyers. We were actually able to get them a second home. And in the beginning of the process, there was like a lot of nerves around, the price and whatnot. And when I walked in the door, I was like, oh my gosh. And just through the entire transaction, I didn't say a word to anybody until it closed. But I was like, if they would have went with an agent, they would have got they would have got 50 grand more. They would have got 60 grand more. Like it was mind blowing to me. And so, I mean, the numbers are still out there, even amidst this crazy, insane market. And to give you perspective on that one, that was a second home market that has seen a 233% increase in market activity in the last year, right? That market 2 years ago, properties were sitting on for years, for seasons is how second markets work, but they were sitting on for 2 and 3 seasons. As of today, there's less than 4 active properties in the entire market. And I'm telling you that in this market, for a seller that just, I'm sure they thought like the market's crazy, it's insane, we can do it. They still, I'm excited. My client's sitting on some great equity. I'm stoked for them. But point being is that there is, I think it just comes down to skill. Like it's repetitive. It's when we do anything repeatedly, we become better at it. That's the hints. Our athletes, our world, the more you do something, practice makes progress, right? And so unless you're the seller that's doing this 150 times a year, you're probably not keeping up with the professionals in your market. And so anyways, I have enjoyed talking to you. We are 10 minutes over, but I feel like I could do it all day long. And, for you agents out there, we are thankful and honored to get to be part of you in this industry. Please know you can always lean into us, not only in our own local markets, but of course through Real Estate Mega Moms and our platform. And for any, people out there that may be looking to purchase or sell, Bethany or myself would be honored to help you out and answer your questions in the Northern Nevada or the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so you can get a hold of either one of us, obviously on social media. But thank you so much for being our guest today and filling in for Jess while she was out. And hopefully we made her proud. And
it was fun. I love chatting with you. We always have really good conversations. So
yep, and we could keep them going all day, but we'll cut them short. And I feel like this may be leading to some more guest spots. I think it would be really interesting, and it would be awesome to just highlight more agents across the country and hear about their market. So thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Bye, Randy.
Bye, Beth.